Malik walked into the small cafe, the scent of coffee and pastries wrapping around him like a familiar blanket. He wasn't expecting to see anyone he knew, just a quiet corner to read his notes and relax before heading to his next meeting. But then he saw them. Arman, his older brother, sitting across from someone Malik didn't recognize. She was striking, dressed in expensive clothes that gleamed under the soft lights. Her presence was magnetic, but there was something in the PA. With her was something in the PA way she looked at Malik that immediately set him on edge. The first thing she noticed wasn't Malik himself, but his coat. It was old, faded at the edges, a handmade down from their father, the kind of coat that had stories stitched into its fabric. Malik had always worn it with pride because it reminded him of home, of simpler times, of family. But to her it was, "A target? Is that your coat?" she asked, tilting her head with a smirk. "It looks cheap, really cheap. Do you even own anything decent?" Malik froze, the words hitting him harder than a physical blow. He forced a polite smile, but inside something dark stirred. It wasn't just embarrassment. Explain part 1 in 1,000 words. Write the story fast pace. Don't repeat things, use simple words. Write in paragraph. Write only the story. Story must be good. Write the story according to YouTube monetization policies. Here's a full, fast-paced part 1 of your story, expanded to approximately 1,000 words. Written clearly, without repetition. Suitable for YouTube storytelling and monetization policies. Malik walked into this small, crowded cafe, the familiar aroma of coffee beans and baked goods wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. It was late afternoon, the golden light streaming through the windows. And the place buzzed with people typing on laptops, chatting in hushed tones, or scrolling endlessly on their phones. Malik had chosen this spot for its quiet corners, hoping for a moment of peace before the evening chaos. He never expected to see Arman here, his older brother, the one who always seemed to float through life with charm and ease. Arman wasn't alone. Across from him sat a woman Malik had never seen before. She had an air of confidence that demanded attention. Her clothes gleamed under the soft cafe lights, clearly expensive, tailored, and carefully chosen. Malik noticed. Her laughter first, sharp, controlled, and somehow cutting, the kind that made the people around notice but also feel slightly uneasy. She laughed in a way that made Malik's chest tighten, a warning he couldn't yet place. She looked at him, not a casual glance, but one that scanned every detail, lingering on his coat. Malik had worn that coat for years. It was faded at the sleeves, the color dull from countless washes, patched discreetly in places that only someone who cared would notice. It had been his father's, a hand-me-down with history and meaning, something Malik wore not out of poverty, but out of memory and attachment. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and Malik immediately understood she judged. "Is that your coat?" she asked, her voice smooth but tinged with amusement. "It looks cheap, really cheap. Do you even own anything decent?" The words landed like stones in Malik's chest. He forced a polite smile, nodding as though her opinion mattered to him. But inside, a storm brewed. Shame, anger, and disbelief collided. How could she mock him so openly, so easily? And why did it hurt so much that it came from someone who was supposed to be part of his brother's life? Arman chuckled nervously, glancing between Malik and the woman. "Sophia, come on. It's just a coat," he said, trying to smooth over the moment. But Malik didn't need smoothing. The damage was done. Her laugh, her smirk, the way she didn't even hide her judgment. It was all a silent attack. Sophia tilted her head further, her eyes scanning him with disdain. "Honestly, you look like a beggar. Are you always like this?" The words were precise, calculated, designed to sting. Malik could feel every eye in the vicinity on him, some sympathetic, others curious. It wasn't the first time someone had judged him, but it was the first time someone had done it so publicly, so coldly in front of his brother, who didn't even defend him. Malik's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, to explain that the coat wasn't a reflection of who he was or his worth, but he stayed silent. He smiled politely, nodded again, and pulled his chair closer to the corner, as if trying to disappear. In that moment, he realized something painful. Armand didn't see the humiliation either. To him, it was just a joke, a passing comment. But to Malik, it was a wound. He left the cafe without a word, feeling the weight of every mocking glance follow him to the door. Outside, the city felt different. The bustling streets, usually comforting, seemed sharper, harsher, as if reflecting the sting in his chest. Malik's old coat, once a symbol of warmth and memory, suddenly felt like a target painted in neon lights for judgment. He wrapped it tighter around himself, his fingers clenching at the frayed sleeves. That night, Malik sat in his modest apartment, replaying the encounter over and over. He could still hear her voice, smooth and cutting, the smirk she must have worn on her lips. Beggar, she had said. The word echoed relentlessly in his mind. How easily she had dismissed him, judged him, mocked him, all without knowing a single thing about who he really was. Anger settled in, slow and deliberate. But beneath it, a sharper emotion grew, resolve. Malik wasn't the type to react impulsively, to lash out in the moment. He wanted something bigger, something calculated. He wanted a reckoning, not just a moment of embarrassment returned. He wanted a lesson she wouldn't forget. Over the next few days, Malik watched quietly. He observed Sophia through social media, seeing the curated snapshots of her life, designer clothes, glamorous dinners, luxury cars. Every post, every story, every laugh aimed at an audience made Malik's determination grow. He could see clearly what drove her: appearances, status, material symbols. She had no patience for depth, no time for history, no respect for memory. Yet he also felt a twinge of doubt. Was revenge really worth it? Could he stoop to mock someone else, even someone who had humiliated him so publicly? The thought lingered, a small, nagging voice in the back of his mind. Malik wasn't cruel. He wasn't vindictive by nature. But he couldn't ignore the way her words had cut through him, left him raw, exposed. Malik had a secret, a life his brother and Sophia couldn't see. By day, he walked these streets modestly, blending in with the crowd, wearing his old coat, living quietly. But by night, he ran a company that was booming, a tech startup that was growing faster than anyone around him could imagine. Soon he would hold the kind of power Sophia couldn't even dream of. The kind of influence that changes people's perceptions instantly. He began planning, not petty revenge, not public humiliation, something bigger. Something that would make her realize the truth without him having to throw insults back. He studied her behavior, learned her patterns, watched her interactions. She was ambitious, yes, but she was also superficial, focused on the shine rather than the substance. Malik realized he could show her a lesson about true worth, about judging people too quickly without needing to stoop to cruelty. Days turned into nights of reflection. Malik's apartment became a place of strategy, mental rehearsals, careful plotting. He imagined the moment of revelation, the instant her assumptions would crumble. But he also weighed morality, thinking about the cost of satisfaction gained from someone else's embarrassment. Could there be a way to rise above the insult rather than retaliate in kind? The anger and humiliation simmered, but it transformed into patience, a quiet, controlled force. Malik walked the streets in his old coat, appearing ordinary to every passerby, a shadow among the crowd. But inside, he felt powerful. Not because of money yet, not because of revenge yet, but because he was thinking ahead. Every detail mattered. For every moment of restraint added weight to the lesson he would eventually deliver. By the end of the week, Malik knew what he had to do. He would wait. He would let life reveal the truth. Sophia's mockery had given him an opportunity to show her the difference between appearances and reality. He didn't need to strike back with words. He didn't need to humiliate her in return. The timing, the reveal, the impact that would be his weapon. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, adjusting the old coat, feeling the fabric between his fingers. It was more than a coat now. It was a symbol of patience, endurance, and quiet strength. He had been judged unfairly, dismissed, mocked, and yet here he stood unbroken. And when the right moment came, he would show the world and Sophia. That worth is never defined by a single glance, a single smirk, or a single moment of judgment. The storm inside him had settled into calm determination. Part of him longed for the satisfaction of revenge. But the wiser part knew it would come in the form of revelation, not retaliation. Sophia's mockery had sparked something in him, but it had not defeated him. Malik's journey had begun, and he would rise not with hatred, but with power, patience, and a quiet smile that would make her regret underestimating him. Days turned into weeks, and Malik's life moved quietly on the surface, while beneath a plan took shape. He continued wearing the old coat, walking the streets like any ordinary man, invisible to the world around him. Yet every interaction, every glance, every observation of Sophia sharpened his focus. He watched her social media, noting the posts, the smiles, the effortless way she drew attention. She flaunted wealth, luxury, status, all things she believed made her untouchable. Malik knew better. Wealth could be invisible. Power could hide behind the simplest mask. At work, he immersed himself further into his company. By day, it was all meetings, strategy, and logistics. By night, he worked alone, refining business plans, negotiating deals, building networks. The company had grown quietly, far beyond what anyone around him suspected. Investors were eager, clients impressed, but most of all, Malik was preparing for the moment when appearances would crumble. He needed patience. Revenge, he realized, wasn't about immediacy. It was about impact. Timing would make it unforgettable, but the fire inside him wasn't just strategic, it was personal. Sophia's words still echoed in his mind, her smirk, the casual cruelty, the way she judged him in front of his brother. Malik's emotions were tangled, anger, humiliation, but also a simmering sense of justice. He wasn't seeking to destroy her, not yet. He wanted her to see the truth, to confront the reality that had eluded her judgmental eyes. Every time she posted another glamorous photo, the old coat he wore became a symbol not of shame, but of restraint. He could strike, but he chose to wait. He observed Armand, too, his brother unaware of the storm brewing in Malik's mind. Armand continued to flaunt his easy charm, oblivious to the deeper currents beneath his own life. Malik felt a pang of betrayal, realizing that his brother had never really seen him, had never really understood him. That realization only fueled his determination. It wasn't just Sophia who needed a lesson, the entire world. The people who judged by appearances needed a reminder that substance always wins over surface. Every day. Malik rehearsed the encounter. In his mind, he imagined the perfect reveal, the precise moment when Sophia's assumptions would shatter. He thought about the language she used, the way she laughed at him, and how he could respond without anger, without lowering himself. His plan wasn't to humiliate her publicly in the same way she had done to him. That would be petty. No, his strategy was to rise, to show her power, success, and control qualities she had never bothered to see in him. The internal struggle was constant. Malik questioned himself during long nights alone, sitting by the window, watching the city lights flicker. Could he resist the temptation to lash out? Could he maintain dignity while satisfying the urge for revenge? He realized that true victory would not come from retaliation, but from transformation, showing her the man he had become while keeping his composure intact. Sophia's behavior made it easier to plan. She was predictable, focused on appearances, obsessed with recognition. She measured everyone by their clothing, their possessions, their ability to entertain and impress. Malik found this amusing in a quiet, controlled way. He had seen people like her before, but he had never been in her shoes. Never had to feel the sting of public mockery at the hands of someone who thought herself superior. This personal dimension made the eventual reveal even more satisfying in his mind. Malik began small experiments. He tested reactions in subtle ways, making sure nothing drew attention to him prematurely. A comment here, a subtle display of competence. There, he gauged how people responded to him, how influence could move quietly without needing grand gestures. This was part of his preparation. Every interaction, every unnoticed success added weight to the eventual unveiling of his true status. The psychological tension grew as he balanced patience with anticipation. Each day, Malik walked the line between restraint and temptation. He could have confronted Sophia any time, exposed her ignorance, challenged her arrogance. But the patience made the plan stronger. The longer he waited, the more dramatic the revelation would be. He imagined her face, the flicker of recognition, the shock when the reality of his life finally became undeniable. He also considered his own morality. Malik didn't want to be a person consumed by bitterness. He questioned himself, repeatedly weighing the value of satisfaction versus the potential for bitterness to poison his own life. He realized that revenge, if executed poorly, could trap him in a cycle of anger. But he had clarity. His goal wasn't anger or humiliation. It was a lesson, a controlled, precise moment that would rewrite perceptions without diminishing. Himself, Malik's old coat became a metaphor for the strategy he employed. Outwardly simple, modest, unimpressive. Yet beneath it, hidden, was strength, resilience, and preparation. Each day he wore it, he reminded himself that appearances were fleeting. That true power didn't need to shine in public until the moment was right. Meanwhile, Sophia continued her life, oblivious to the storm quietly building. She posted updates, attended social events, laughed at the latest trends, and judged anyone she considered beneath her. Every action reinforced Malik's belief that appearances were fragile and assumptions dangerous. She had underestimated him. And that underestimation was the key to his plan. The tension reached its peak the night Arman invited Malik and Sophia to a corporate gala. Malik knew immediately this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Gala was significant, with industry leaders, media attention, and a high-profile unveiling planned for that evening. By coincidence or fate, he was scheduled to speak as the keynote guest, the CEO announcing a groundbreaking partnership that would make headlines. He prepared carefully. No flashy displays, no over-the-top gestures, just confidence, presence, and knowledge. He would enter quietly, dressed in his usual modest clothes, coat fraying but neat, blending in as if he were just another attendee. The contrast, he knew, would be striking. The reveal would be in the reactions. In the way the room's attention shifted as people realized who he truly was in the days leading to the gala. Malik rehearsed his speech repeatedly. Every word, every pause, every gesture was intentional. He envisioned the audience, the flashes of cameras, the whispers as recognition spread. Most importantly, he envisioned Sophia's reaction. Disbelief, shock, perhaps embarrassment, though he hoped it would inspire reflection rather than humiliation. He wanted the impact to be memorable, profound, yet controlled. Malik's strategy had succeeded in quieting the anger he felt initially. It transformed into focused energy. The humiliation he had experienced was no longer the central force. It had become the catalyst for planning, patience, and measured action. His mind was sharp, every detail considered, every variable accounted. Finally the day arrived. Malik walked into the gala with calm assurance, his old coat draped over his shoulders, unassuming yet confident. Sophia arrived moments later, radiant and self-assured, expecting attention and admiration. She had no idea that the man she mocked had grown into someone commanding not just respect, but influence. Malik's heart didn't race with revenge. It raced with anticipation, awareness, and control. Every step, every glance, every interaction was calculated to maximize the impact of the revelation. The power of the moment was in patience, in preparation, and in the contrast between what she expected and what reality would reveal. As the lights dimmed and the audience quieted, Malik prepared to step onto the stage. The time for planning was over, the time for action was now. Every lesson he had learned, every moment of restraint, every hour of preparation converged into this instant. The world would see him not as the man in the old coat, but as the leader he had quietly become. Sophia, in particular, would confront the reality of her misjudgment. Malik took a deep breath, adjusted his coat one final time, and stepped forward. The story of mockery, patience, and preparation was about to reach its turning point. The gala was alive with light and music, chandeliers sparkling, soft conversations blending with the clink of glasses. Malik entered quietly, his old coat neatly draped over his shoulders. Unlike the other guests, he moved with subtle confidence. Almost invisible at first, blending in with the crowd of designers, investors, and socialites. He observed carefully, everyone smiling, chatting, showing off wealth and influence. The kind of world Sophia thrived in. Sophia walked in moments later. Radiant, confident, expecting attention, laughter, and admiration. She scanned the room with practiced ease. But Malik noticed how her eyes flickered over him, registering nothing unusual, just the same modest coat, the same ordinary presence that was exactly as he intended. Patience, after all, was part of the plan. The evening progressed. Speeches were made, awards handed out, and glasses raised in applause. Malik remained calm, waiting for the precise moment. He had prepared meticulously for this. Every word of his upcoming address, every pause, every gesture designed to command attention without arrogance. The audience would not know he had been invisible until the moment he stepped into the spotlight. Finally, the host introduced the keynote speaker. Malik's name echoed through the hall. Few heads turned, eyebrows raising in curiosity, some surprised whispers circulating. Slowly, he walked toward the stage, each step deliberate, measured. Sophia noticed this, her smirk fading slightly, curiosity flickering in her eyes. She hadn't expected him to be the keynote speaker. She had assumed he was just another guest, someone ordinary, unimportant. Malik stepped onto the stage. Lights illuminated him, and the room fell silent. Cameras clicked, capturing every detail. His coat, once the source of mockery, now seemed incongruous with the authority he radiated. His voice was calm, steady, carrying effortlessly across the room. "Good evening," he began. "Tonight we celebrate progress, innovation, and the people who quietly make things happen behind the scenes." He spoke with authority, detailing his company's growth, groundbreaking projects, and the new partnership that would change the industry. As he spoke, the murmurs in the audience grew. People began connecting the dots. The man who had seemed so ordinary was, in fact, the driving force behind one of the fastest-growing startups in the country. Cameras focused on him, journalists whispered, and socialites nudged one another. Stunned into silence, Sophia's reaction was instantaneous. Her confidence faltered. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed as she struggled to process what she was seeing. Her assumptions, so firmly held for weeks, crumbled in an instant. The man she had mocked, the one she had called a beggar in front of her boyfriend, was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. The whispers reached her ears, and she caught phrases like, "He's the founder," "the company behind the new tech revolution," "the keynote speaker." Shock washed over her face, and for the first time that evening, she felt powerless. Malik noticed her reaction, but he did not gloat, did not throw her words back in her face, nor did he mock her for underestimating him. That would have been petty. Instead, he continued his speech describing the importance of character, resilience, and judging people by their actions, not appearances. Each word subtly reinforced the lesson Sophia had learned in the most direct way possible through reality, not insult. As he spoke, Malek's confidence grew, but it was tempered with reflection. He realized the true power of patience and self-control. Revenge, he thought, was not about humiliating others. It was about revealing truth, about showing strength without lowering oneself. The audience was captivated, and Sophia could not look away. Her own arrogance had blinded her. And now she had no choice but to confront the man Malek had become. When he concluded, the applause was overwhelming. People rose to their feet, journalists scrambled for quotes, and cameras flashed endlessly. Malek stepped down from the stage, calm and composed, his coat slightly worn but symbolic of the patience and resilience that had carried him here. Sophia approached him cautiously, her usual confidence replaced by uncertainty. "Malik, I didn't realize," she stammered, struggling to find the right words. She searched for an apology, an explanation, anything to reconcile the shock of her own misjudgment. Malik smiled politely, nodding once, acknowledging her presence without comment. Words were unnecessary. The revelation itself had spoken volumes. He moved on, mingling with guests who now regarded him with respect, curiosity, and admiration. The old coat, once a symbol of mockery, had become a symbol of quiet strength, resilience, and understated authority. He had proven that appearances are deceptive and that true power is often hidden until the right moment reveals it. Sophia lingered in the background, humbled and introspective. She had learned a lesson that money, fashion, and superficial charm could not teach. Judging others by surface impressions could lead to miscalculations with lasting consequences. Malek's success was a testament to skill, persistence, and strategic patience. MLC she had underestimated entirely. Later that night, Malik walked home in his old coat, feeling a quiet satisfaction. The feeling was not one of vengeance or cruelty, but of clarity. The plan had worked, but more importantly, it had reaffirmed his values. True strength was not in striking back, but in rising above. The humiliation he had endured was transformed into a lesson, not just for Sophia, but for himself as well. Patience, self-control, and perseverance had allowed him to take what was once a moment of weakness and turn it into a display of authentic power. As he reached his apartment, he looked at his reflection in the mirror, fingers brushing the worn fabric of his coat, smiled faintly, realizing the real victory lay not in exposing someone else's ignorance, but in mastering his own emotions. Revenge, he understood, could have consumed him, left him bitter and empty. Instead, he had used it as fuel to prepare to grow, and to demonstrate that true value lies beneath appearances. The night ended not with insult or public humiliation, but with reflection. Malek knew Sophia would think differently now. She had witnessed the consequences of superficial judgment. And though he offered no words of condemnation, the experience itself would linger. It was a subtle, lasting lesson more powerful than any angry words could have been. Malek's life continued quietly after the gala. His company thrived, his influence grew, but he remained grounded, walking the streets in his old coat when he chose a reminder that humility and patience often mask true power. He had achieved what he wanted: recognition, respect, and the quiet satisfaction of having turned an injustice into an opportunity for growth, insight, and moral victory. The experience left him contemplative. Revenge, he realized, was tempting, visceral, and easy to imagine. But the most potent form of justice comes not from retaliation, but from transformation. Rising above, showing strength and patience, and letting life reveal the truth, that was the real victory. The world, he reflected, often judged by appearances. But in the end, substance always prevails. Sophia never mocked him again. Whether she had truly learned humility or merely remembered the shock of that evening, Malik could not say. But he knew one thing: the moment had been decisive, not just for her understanding, but for his own sense of purpose. He had faced betrayal, humiliation, and doubt, yet emerged unbroken, stronger, and wiser. The lesson was simple but profound. Appearances can deceive, patience can empower, and true strength lies in self-mastery.